Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Miller, editor of r.e.view magazine and marketing director here at BayWa RE Solar Systems. I'm happy to be joined today by Russ Minick. Russ is the Chief Marketing Officer at Generac Power Systems. Russ, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Generac is one of the newest additions to the BayWa line card, and we carry their PWRCell storage system, and it's received a ton of attention from our customer base. Russ, before we dive into Generac and PWRCell, I'd like to chat a little bit about you and your road to Chief Marketing Officer at Generac Power Systems. I saw on your LinkedIn that before Generac, you were President and CEO of Electrolux Floor Care and Small Appliances. I'm wondering what you learned during your time at Electrolux that you brought to your marketing work at Generac.
Well, I've been around a while, so I've ran a lot of different businesses in different areas, and I know probably the number one thing I tell people is the industry you're in is such a huge factor in like the health of a business. And that, when I was at Electrolux, it was largely floor care products, and they're all, it's very commoditized, and everything's being driven down to the lowest price possible, and it's like ripping pennies in half. Make a profit in a business like that, not growing. And one of the great things about energy businesses, and particularly renewable energy businesses, is they're all experiencing really strong annual growth rates, which is great. A lot of innovation is still in the early innings, so there's a lot of great new innovation that comes to market. Get paid for some of that innovation, which is important, because that fuels more innovation after that. So really, the industry you're in makes a major difference whether or not you've kind of got wind in your sails, or you're versus trying to swim up a stream with a brick in each hand type of a thing. So picking the right industry, I think, is great. I think the other thing too is, if you're going to spend 50, 60 hours a week of your life devoted to a cause or doing something, I've learned that it's far more rewarding. It gives you more energy back and all those things if you're doing something that's good. And that's one of the great things about the clean energy business and the renewable business is you go home at night and you've helped somehow, some way, and that's good, and it gives you energy to get up the next day and try and accelerate that. So
yeah, I agree. So I'm relatively new to marketing, and I'm still learning this side of the business. I'm curious, to know if you can talk about the evolutions you've seen in marketing in the last 20 years, and what are you seeing as really important in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, I think a couple things in marketing in general. I think technology obviously is changed. Being able to digitally market in a measurable, cost-effective way has changed the landscape more than anything in my lifetime. You think about back in the day when my career first started, you had an ad agency, and they would come in and you would look at what print ads you were going to run, and today, you're so much digitally focused, and it affects everything. I mean, if you look at, we do a lot of TV spend. The amount of it that's now streaming over the top spend is increasing dramatically. I mean, the whole digital landscape and it makes it measurable, which is great too. And so, like here, I mean, we literally get a dashboard every single morning of all the money we spent, where we spent it in specifically, and how many people responded to that, and then how many people we converted from that response into what we call an in-home appointment. And then we take that in-home appointment, and then we automatically send it to our dealer partners, and they acknowledge it. And I get that every morning. I mean, you think about that's a lot of data that we get on a every morning basis. And there's a lot of mornings where that number is close to 2,000 in-home appointments that we've shot off to dealers overnight. And so it's become really a very cool thing to be able to look at it. And then we actually track close rates as well of those deals. And now you've got an ROI. Now you can sit there and you can say, I spent this yesterday and it made financial sense, or it didn't, or I spent TV money on one channel and it didn't work, but I spent it in another area and it worked great. You're able to do that in the attribute, and you can fine tune the tiny knobs now. Like it makes the marketer's job, instead of going into your boss and asking for more expense money, if you get it right, your boss is coming to you saying, hey, if we spend more, how much more can we do? And so when you can turn that around, because you're now, instead of a cost center, you're an ROI business and marketing. And we've got the ability to do that now. And we do that here at Generac. So it's great.
I can't remember what I was watching, but I think it might have been the Super Bowl. And I was watching it on YouTube TV, which we now subscribe to. But in a commercial, a very long, very informative Generac ad came up. And it might have just been about the area I was in, but can you talk about the marketing push and what you're doing around PWRCell? And are you very targeting this very regionally? Are you doing it in response to, the data that you're getting every morning? Like what's your approach there?
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. We get instant data, to your point. We do a mix of national and specific targeted DMAs when it comes to our biggest spend is TV. Mm-hmm. But we do a mix of that, and a couple of things can drive that. One would be, for example, there was a power shutoff in Southern California last week, and all the power shutoffs to this point had been mostly more in Northern California. So this was one of the initial times that San Diego and LA, Orange County had been affected. So we went local in that case. So we spent a bunch of money in San Diego. And other things we look at is, power outages. If there's a power outage because of a storm, we tend to ramp up on that. On the generator side of our business, you can see hurricanes coming for 4 or 5, 6 days going. So we tend to try to own the weather channel in situations like that in terms of spend. Those are some of the things we look at. But when things are sort of steady state, that's when we start fine tuning and trying to look at specific markets. We see interesting consumer behavior, like, COVID. I think all companies were this way. When it first became a serious issue, everybody was like, wow, business is going to go down. We got to right size. We got to really tighten the belt. And we weren't long into that. And we saw the opposite when it comes to home power products. If people are going to work from home and school from home, all those things, they wanted to make sure they had a continuous supply of power. So, we've seen battery storage, we've seen generators, all that stuff. It spiked. It didn't go down. It actually spiked, which was interesting. And then we saw interesting consumer behavior where, like, take Florida, you had COVID as a backdrop, and then we had a really active hurricane season on top of that. And that layering effect took that to numbers we'd never seen before. Already a really good state for us, but it drove it to exponential levels of consumer interest, which was unbelievable. We also see things like echo of a year before major event. So the one that people remember the most is probably like Hurricane Sandy that hit up in the Northeast. But at that same time of year, for about 2 years after that, we'd see a big spike in consumer demand because there'd be a bunch of media that would run like, remember, it was 1 year ago today that Hurricane Sandy hit, and then people started thinking, yeah, if that happens again, I better get prepared, type of a thing. And so we saw like this echo effect that happened for like 3 straight years off of Sandy. So you see all kinds of really interesting consumer behavior take place.
Yeah. That's great information for the marketers out there. Let's chat a little bit about Generac, shall we?
Yep.
So can you give me the short pitch on the PWRCell storage system and why our solar contractor partners should be paying attention to this product?
Well, that's the ultimate question. That's a great question. And I'll tell you what we tried to bring to it. So, we've been around 60 years. We've been around a long time. We're about $2.5 billion in annual sales. We're global. We've got over 2 million home standby generators, home generators hooked to houses, which are natural gas and electricity coming out the other side. So it's, technically bombs, I guess. So we've got pretty good capabilities. We got about 600 engineers here in a big tech center and things like that. What we tried to look at when we got into the clean energy space was a couple things. One is we talked to a lot of contractors, and what we found was the industry, because it was new, we're not trying to bag on anybody, but because the industry was new and the technology is pretty complex and emerging, that the industry was plagued with a lot of buggy product, like products would launch and there'd be issues and recalls and things like that, and failure rates that were higher than anybody wanted, driving expenses for contractors to roll a truck and things. So we, at launch, we went through extensive testing to make sure the product was bulletproof. We're used to doing that because, again, we're making really technical and potentially volatile products with generators here. So we're used to that, and we have really rigorous processes. But I mean, we've got all the labs here to shake it, freeze it, salt fog it, cool it, heat it, overload it. We do everything, unbalanced legs. We try to do everything we can to halt test it and wreck it. And ultimately you can wreck anything, I guess, but we were able to really harden the product. And I think contractors really appreciate that. The second thing we tried to do was just be in stock. I mean, we're a profitable large company. We're able to invest in inventory. And I think the industry, again, has been plagued with availability. I mean, so like the contractor's job is hard enough just trying to get deals. Then when you go to do the deals and everybody's out of stock and you can't get a battery or you can't get an inverter, and they're telling you it's going to be 8-week lead times. That's really hard. And so we made a commitment to be in stock and deliver. And so those are kind of like foundational things we thought. And the third foundational thing before I jump off that one was if tech support is required, we want to have smart people answer the phone fast and help contractors. And so we made a big commitment, hired a lot of people, trained a lot of people. We run a lot of extended hours here to accommodate things like Hawaii and California and stuff. But we want to make sure that we have, if we have any hold times, we want to make sure they're less than 3 minutes. And we've been able to deliver on that pretty well as well. The next thing was the product itself. We were going to make it ourselves and here and into it. And it wouldn't have been like the biggest hurdle ever to make power electronics and battery storage products from a hardware standpoint. But once we got into it for, 4 or 5 or 6 months on the project, it became really clear that the complexity was really in like the firmware, the interfaces with the grid code, compliance, all those, and all those areas are really complex and they change all the time. And so that became, we were looking at each other and we're like, we can build it, but we won't be like competent and code compliant and all that. So it'll probably take us a long time to figure it all out. So we said, let's buy our way in. So that we knew the Pika team before. They were out in Portland, Maine, just a really cool story of a bunch of guys that went to MIT together and decided to start a business in the founder's basement. And the founder still works for us today, Ben Polito. And they worked out of Ben's basement building high-end inverters. We ran into them. They were looking for some money, of course, like they all are. And we liked those guys. They were just super good guys. They actually grew up on an island without power. So when you think islanding, they literally islanded. So they were just great guys. And so we decided, we called them and we said, you were looking for money. And what if we just buy you? And they're like, well, we don't want to be bought. We're entrepreneurs and all that. We don't want to be part of a big, fossil fuel burning generator company. So we convinced them to come out and visit us. And they're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And so we hit it off and we ended up making an acquisition of Pika. That's how we got Jeremy here. And then we also made an acquisition of a company out in Vancouver, Canada called Neurio Technologies that was a room full of software and data scientists that were making home energy meters that you would hook up to your house and tell you all your energy consumption and production and all those things. And our idea was to build Neurio technology inside the Pika system, harden the heck out of it and launch it, which is essentially what we did under the Generac brand. And since launch, we've had several really important new product upgrades, and we've got a lot more coming.
That's a great overview. Thank you. One of the things that we get a lot of questions about is Generac's lead sharing program. Can you talk a bit about that for us? How does one qualify and participate? What's the process around, or what's your process around defining and qualifying those leads before? So
it's really low barrier, and arguably maybe too low. I mean, people sometimes look at us like we're crazy. Like we're the only one that actually spends and generates leads and spends against leads at this level. We're a manufacturer, and normally that's that type of lead gen is saved for people like SunNova, Sunrun, those type of guys. SunPower does some, but as a manufacturer, we decided to make a commitment to do it because as we talk to contractors, we hear cost of customer acquisition in the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a deal up range. I mean, it's a crazy cost. And we thought that if we helped with that, that would be of high interest and help us penetrate the market, and it has. So basically, we've got we hit different approaches, but again, a heavy part of our spend is TV. So we shot a series of different, I guess, call them infomercials for lack of a better term, but we shot a 15-minute, a 5-minute, a 2-minute, and a 1-minute, different versions of an infomercial. And the infomercial essentially, it just sells the merits of solar and storage. And so that's kind of what it does. And we found that the 2-minute version works the best. it's long enough to tell the story, but when you start getting into those longer versions, it really starts limiting what TV channels will take it. So 2 minutes, about anybody will take it, and it's long enough to tell the story, short enough to keep customers engaged, and you get access to almost unlimited media. So we run a lot of TV and pretty heavy digital. We drive the homeowner to do one of two things: either hit our website and fill out a form, or preferably call us. And the call center is here. Our employees right down the hallway from me here. And we call them energy consultants. And it's a group of people that we've trained really, really, really heavily. I listen to a lot of calls personally, call recordings, and it's a constant process around it. But we talk to customers about their energy needs. While we're talking to them, we're getting their address immediately, and we put it in one of our tools that pulls up a rooftop view of that house. So I would say to you, hey, Tom, thanks for calling Generac. Give me your address really quick. You'll give it to me, and then I'll be, oh yeah, great. I see your house. It looks like you don't have a lot of trees or shading problems. That looks good. By the way, it looks like you got a nice basketball court in the backyard. They always laugh or something. They're like, because it's kind of funny because you're like, oh, wow, you're looking at my house. Like, yeah, we're looking at your house. Looks like you're a good candidate here. Let me get this right. Your utility company is Detroit Edison, right? Yeah, it is. Okay. Looks like your bill should be, you're probably in the $250 a month. Yeah, it is. Okay, got it. Well, quick calculations here. It looks like your roof looks good. Looks like you're a good candidate for solar. And it looks like we can save you a fair amount of money here. It looks like we can offset, 90+% of that utility bill. Looks like this system can pay for itself in a reasonable amount of time and then be a cash machine on that. I'll tell you what we should do, Tom, is we should go ahead and schedule one of our Generac contractors to come out and give you a formal quote. It's free, no obligation, no pressure, and it's free. But I can tell from just looking at this right now that this is something that might be of interest to you. What do you say we do that today? And then so about roughly about half the calls we convert into an in-home appointment. The half that we don't convert, we do it for one of two reasons. One is they just want more information. So we have a free information packet we send out to them so they can get more information. And those customers convert really well over time. And then there's the other segment is they just weren't qualified. The beauty of TV is you reach a lot of people, and the bane of TV is you reach a lot of people. And so, they could have been on their 14th beer and at 2 a.m. watching an infomercial and called you, type of thing. So we try to qualify, so we only pass around high quality leads to our dealers. We pass them through a tool that we give the dealers, and so they would come in and they would see that they have this appointment on their calendar. They call the customer back to kind of confirm all that's good to go, and then they go out and then they can plan the whole job in our tool. And we've got financing built into it, including Sonova, as well as all the likely Loan Pal and all the dividend and Mosaic and all that stuff. And they can finance it, propose it, the whole 9 yards right there. They mark it closed, lost, still working it. We see all that. And that's kind of how the process works. On form fills, we have the team outbound call the form fill people. It's interesting. The form fill conversion is really strong because they took the time to fill out the form.
Yeah.
They cared enough to fill out the form. And so that conversion is really, really strong. We have less shakeout on that. One of the things we're working on to launch around mid-year in 21, though, is a warm transfer. So one of the areas where the system can break down a little bit is we hang up that phone from talking to that homeowner, and then we push that lead to the contractor, who then tries to call that homeowner back. And there's some percentage, it's not big, but it's enough that it's bothersome, that never can get a hold of that homeowner again. It's confusing to the homeowner. Like, I called Generac and, Semper Solaris is calling me back. Like, what? I don't understand. Right. And so what we're going to do around mid-year is we're going to move to a warm transfer where we're talking. Say, okay, Tom, you're a good candidate. You want to do it? Okay, got it. Here, I'm going to put you on hold for 30 seconds. I'm going to connect you with our premier installer in your area. So then I put them on hold. I would call up the solar contractor. They agree to answer the phone. We put them on the phone together. They agree on a time and a date, and he may ask a few more qualifying questions, and then away we go. That's going to be a nice breakthrough for us too. We're pretty excited about that, the warm transfer capability.
That's an amazing lead generation process. How do solar contractors get involved?
Yeah, you did ask that question. That's probably the part I should, that's what's good for us is to talk about that. So it's really simple. So you take a 1-day training class. We've got a virtual version that most people are doing now instead of in person. In the first quarter of this year, we did a lot of in person until in person became not safe. So we've got a virtual version of that. You can enroll on our website. It's simple, and you take a one-day class. And when you finish that class, you can enroll in what we call a Power Partners program. And the Power Partner program gets you the tool as well as access to the leads. Okay. So a one-day training class, the leads and access and the tool are like $400 a year. It's cheap. It's because it does all the rooftop, all the planning, proposals, like I said, the whole thing, shading analysis. So it's a heck of a value to the point where when we say what it is, they say, you mean a month? And I'm like, no, it's a year. And I'm like, oh, geez, it's a no-brainer. So that's how you do it. Just commit to it. So it's to some training. It's installation training, basically, so you can do a good job. But you just commit to some installation training, sign up, and you're in the way you go. And it's been very, very good.
Yeah. Well, that's great. We only have a few minutes left, and I had a few other questions for you, but maybe real quick, can you talk about, what's ahead in terms of the PWRCell product with flexibility?
It's a good question, because the product we're selling right now is been substantially enhanced from the product we launched with in January. So about, I don't know, maybe 90 days ago, we made a whole bunch of changes, and I'll go through it now. But essentially, because we grew up as whole home backup generator guys, one of the things we saw when we entered the space was, what's up with all these critical load panels or sub panels? Like, why aren't we powering whole homes with clean energy? And what we saw was they were trying to by stacking up multiple Teslas or multiple inverters. And the answer was the inverters didn't have enough output, and there wasn't enough battery capacity to start and run a 3-ton air conditioner in a house. And so our products, we said, well, wow, we're the whole home guys. And so what we have today is we have a battery that's 18 kilowatt hours. I mean, it's by far the biggest battery in the market at 18 kilowatt hours. We have an inverter whose constant output is 9 kilowatts, which is by far the strongest in the industry. And it peaks or surges up to 11, and it's got 50 amps of motor starting capacity. And then we've got a whole house transfer switch, and it's got a bunch of load management built into it that you prioritize. And so what all that means is between a big battery with high power output and really cool load controls, you can run a whole house. And so one thing that a contractor could take away from this is we're the whole house guys. We're the most powerful, largest battery load control gurus here. So that's where we're at right now today with that product. So if you went to CD Green Tech or any of those places, that's what you'd be getting from us today. In Q1 of next year and Q2, there's two things coming right in that same time frame. One is AC coupling. Today we're a DC coupled system. You need to use our optimizers, our rapid shutoff devices on the panels, our inverter, our battery. It's a full system. In Q1, Q2, you'll be able to AC couple it. In other words, if somebody already has solar installed and they just want to add a battery, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to do a retrofit and leave all the rooftop stuff alone and not have to do a big hassle. So it'll be an easier, more flexible install. Or let's say you're a contractor that really, really, really likes microinverters, and you don't want to stop doing that, but you really, really like our battery, you'll be able to do that. So the AC coupling unlocks a bunch of market for us. The second thing we're doing is we're going to be launching Generac generator integration to the system, to the PWRCell system. So it's going to create a microgrid at the house level, so to speak, whereas the generator will turn on, recharge the battery on a long power outage, get you through the night. There's different installation ways around it where you can make it more like a hybrid where the generator can carry the big loads and the battery can carry the small, however you want to do it. But we've got about 3 or 4 different installation strategies that creates a microgrid, which was a huge ask. All contractors like, you're Generac, you got generators. Why can't I hook this generator to your PWRCell? Makes no sense to me. Well, you will. So we listen and you'll be able to do that. And then a little bit later in the year, we're super jacked about a product. We got a code name for it now called Octopus, but essentially it's a box that's looks cool. It's styled nicely, but it's about the size of a shoebox. It's got 14 circuits in it. It's high-end kind of smart relays, essentially. But what it'll do is it'll interface with any electrical panel anywhere that's already sitting there. And with an app in the consumer's hand, they can swipe off and on loads.
Wow.
really awesome. So let's say you're in a long power outage and you're all of a sudden your pool heater kicks on. And you're like, I don't need a pool heater in the middle of a power outage. You can whip up that app and swipe it right off, and you'll see your battery life calculation go way up. Or let's say you decided you didn't want to run your air conditioners, and then later in the night you said, bad idea, I do want to run the air conditioners. Swipe it right back on. So it'll handle, again, like 14 circuits that puts in the customer's hands control of what they want to power and how long they want their battery to last. So we think it's going to be affordable. We think it's really cool. There's products out there like Span and things that are pretty intrusive, like you got to tear up your house and are pretty expensive. This does a lot of those things at a fraction of the cost and is really easy to install in literally any situation. So we're excited about that as well.
Great. Well, it's an exciting product, and it looks like there's a lot of exciting things ahead. Russ, that's all we have the time for. Thank you very much for talking with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.